once again, Bakugan Brawlers. So here's the thing, I love comic books a lot, and I have been collecting comics for... it's gotta be around a decade by now. And the thing is, I desperately want a Bakugan comic book. That would be just so great. And I have a couple ideas about what that would look like if they were to actually implement a Bakugan comic book. First of all, the liberties that the writer would have to have for the comic book would be very strange. Because if you read some of the comic books that are going alongside of bigger franchises, they typically get really creative with what they're allowed to do, which I love. Like if you read the Adventure Time comic books, or I guess read the Adventure Time comic books, I should say now, because apparently the season 11 comic ended at 7 issues, which hurts me very much. But HBO is gonna have a new season of Adventure Time, so I'm not too upset. If you read the Adventure Time comic books, I mean, Adventure Time is a very different beast. It has its canon, and they can't go further than what's already established, but they managed to make their own unique stories and kind of have their own kind of canon going on alongside with the show. I feel like if they were to make a comic book, it would go more along the lines of Adventure Time, at least for the beginning. It would feature the main characters, Dan, Winton, Leah, Shun, and Lightning. Gotta have Lightning in there. If you don't have Lightning in there, I'm going to sue. I know I'll lose, but I'll sue. And the story would most likely be just fun adventures. It wouldn't be anything big or world-ending. They wouldn't be going to Vestroia. It would just be, hey, there's this side plot, this fun little thing that's happening over here that we gotta deal with. I would imagine, that's the kind of aesthetic I go with the comics I make for Bakugan. In case you don't know, I sometimes make like a page comic of Bakugan, just like either breaking the fourth wall and talking about, I don't know, hey, Kodak made a video of Chinese knockoffs that may be a problem for parents that want to buy stuff for their kids. Or I just make in-world joke, and it's nothing that crazy. Except for that one time where I actually tried to elaborate on Magnus's character, because I'm not super satisfied with Magnus's character, even though he's the one who has the most potential with his character. Like, really, they should really be exploring Magnus. And Shun. Shun has a lot of potential with his character. They only kind of just dabble with him. Anyway, what was I talking about? Right, I would imagine it'd be looking like a bit more like a gag, more fun kind of side misadventures kind of deal, just to play it safe at first, and then as it slowly develops in how much people like it, it would eventually get to the point where people are like, oh, I want a bigger story. As the audience matures, I'm assuming it'd not only be people like me, who are 22, who read comic books all the time, but it would also be a bunch of the younger demographic, like everyone below 13 or at 13. They'd most likely also be getting into comic books if this is something that they'd be interested in, because that's around the time that I got into comic books. I got into comic books when The Dark Knight came out. I am a huge Batman fan. That's how I got into comics. But I also really like cartoons, so I started reading a lot of Adventure Time and The Amazing World of Gumball and a little bit of Steven Universe, and then I fell off of Steven Universe. I'm sorry for every Steven Universe fan. I'm sorry. And the Sonic comics. And that's what I want to get to next. It could also go the route, I would imagine, as the comics mature, it would eventually get to the route of the Sonic comic books, where it eventually just gets better than the show. Let's be real. The Sonic comics are better than any of the video games that are ever released. Ian Flynn absolutely knocks it out of the park with everything he does. I forgot to go downstairs to my comic collection and get a Sonic comic book, but nonetheless, you know what I'm talking about. He does an absolutely amazing job, and I imagine that the Bakugan comics would eventually get to that route, where the writer is given a lot of liberties and he or she can just do whatever he or she wants, and it would be kind of cool. I mean, they would still have to work within the lines of what's already been established in the canon, but that's to be expected. The only problem I see is that the comics would have to go the route that, that Pokemon has to deal with, like with the games and the cards and the everything else, how there has to be a lot of communication going on between the people who are designing the toys and the people who are releasing the show and the people who are releasing the cards. and what they can really show in the comics, and it would just be another thing that they have to tack on in the later years. But that's in the later years when things are more established. They kind of figured this all out. I imagine it'd be a lot easier later on when they're used to all this constant communication and they have a pretty good groundwork about, hey, this is the direction we're gonna go. This is how it works here. And so that's how I feel like it would be when the comics are matured. Can you imagine how easy it would be for the artist? Like, they have the 3D models of all the Bakugan. You can just ask the animator. You can just ask TMS Animation Entertainment, whatever comes after TMS. You can just ask TMS, hey, give us the 3D models, and then the artists can work with them. Because eventually some 3D artist is going to recreate the 3D Dragonoid, all the 3D models themselves. It's gonna happen. We already have the action figures, which don't really articulate as much as they would need to for the comic book in order to properly draw, but it's still a great reference point for artists. Dude, I could probably actually just draw a comic now that I have Dragonoid, dude. Bro, I kind of want to do that. Oh, I'm so busy. Somebody do that. Somebody make a comic. The action figures are there. You have a great reference, and you have the entire show as reference at any point. So for any of those really wonky kind of poses, you have the 3D models, and you have the character sheets. I mean, like, the character sheets, the character models are also, like, not the models, the character sheets of, like, the reference sheets. That's the word I'm looking for. The reference sheets for the show is, like, a lot of it's already been leaked online. The reference sheets are just basic, everyday things that you need for drawing anything, and that already exists, so that's not gonna be a problem. Another idea I had for the comics would be, if you want to really just, like, play it safe and give the writer a lot of room to work with, the easiest way to do that is just to let the writer make their own character. And I would imagine, just for it to be interesting, it'd be like, hey, this new character, of course it would be a Darkus Brawler, because I love Darkus. It'd be a Darkus Brawler who works for AA Animus, trying to collect data of the existing Bakugan. Like, it would work as, initially they're a bad guy, but they're only working with the bad guys just out of convenience. They're more of a neutral party than anything else, and they can reference, like, the Awesome Ones as the comics go on. Like, hey, I saw on the Awesome Ones, not YouTube channel, because I bet you they can't actually use YouTube, on the Awesome Ones videos that they did this thing, and they could easily tie it in with what's going on with this new character. Let's call him Derek, I guess. Derek, the new sort of anti-hero Bakugan character, works with AA Animus in order to collect data of the existing Bakugan, and then he eventually gets into a moral quandary of, wait, I know of their bigger scheme now. Oh my gosh, AA Animus is so awful. What do I do? And then there could be a thing where he also probably likes the Awesome Ones, but there could be a misunderstanding where he now dislikes the Awesome Ones. I don't know. I think that would be the best route to go to with this kind of thing. I have some ideas for elaborating on that. I could get a solid arc out of that. Maybe 2 arcs out of that. And even if it like, it doesn't need to be an ongoing series. That's the best part. Like, a lot of comics are just like, hey, a mini-series, like a 6 or 7 issue mini-series. And usually that's enough to get a solid compilation trade paperback out of it, and you can sell the trade paperback. I'd also probably want it to be done by either Boom Studios or IDW. If you can get DC Comics, like, apparently He-Man is now in the hands of DC Comics. I didn't know that, but, like, I just feel like I'm used to Kaboom, I'm used to IDW, because I'm directly referencing the Adventure Time and Sonic comic books, so that's the first thing I thought when I had in mind. Even in one of my comics that I made, when I use the screenshots from the show, I directly reference, hey, I think IDW would be a good, or Boom. I forget which one I actually mentioned, because I go back and forth on it all the time. I directly referenced a specific publisher for the comics. But tell me, what would you prefer? Would you prefer to give the writer and the Bakugan team a very safe bet and just have the writer create their own character, go on their own adventure, and let the writer do what they want, so long as they don't go outside the established canon? Or focus on the main characters, which is much more marketable and it's already been established and the writer already has something to work with? I don't know, would that be easier? I don't think that would be easier. The writer would have to watch the show. If they're a fan of the show, then it's easy. If they're not, and they have to do, like, what Greg Weisman does with the Magic the Gathering books, where he has to go back with a huge amount of lore, and it's already proven to be a problem, then that, you know, that's probably not going to work too well. But Bakugan isn't as complicated as all that, so it's probably not going to be that difficult. Fun side misadventures with the main cast, or Derek and his anti-hero working with AA Animus original story. Choose which you prefer. Is there anything above my hands, or am I just too lazy to edit because I have to prepare for the Invitational this year, and I'm working on another video, and I have school, and oh god, all my projects are due this month. Oh my god. Tell me, if you have any original ideas, tell me what you want. Like, I really like comic books. I'm sorry, I know. I mean, you know me by now. I'm really into all this stuff, video games and cartoons and comics. I hope you enjoy this video. Stay beautiful and keep playing.